For our 4.4 lesson, we're going to be using what we've already learned about the Pythagorean Theorem and apply it to real-life situations. This example shows a shed, and we want to paint the roof of the shed. In order to do that, we need to place a ladder that will reach up 35 feet, and for safety, it needs to be placed with the base 12 feet from the shed. So what we have here is a right triangle. We have this side, and this side. We are trying to find this unknown side here. Are we finding a leg or a hypotenuse? If you're having difficulty visualizing this, you can draw another sketch. Notice that we have a right angle here. They're labeling this 35 feet and this 12 feet. We are looking for the side across from the right angle. So we are looking for a hypotenuse, C. To do this, we're going to use the Pythagorean Theorem that says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I'm going to use 35 for my a and 12 for the b. So we have 35 squared plus 12 squared is equal to c squared. You will use your calculator to find 35 squared and 12 squared. 35 squared is 1,225. What is 12 squared? You should know that 12 squared is 144, and we're going to set that equal to c squared. Now we are going to add the two numbers on the left together, and that gives us 1,369 is equal to c squared. To find c, we take the square root of both sides. So c is equal to what? C is equal to the square root of 1,369, which is 37, and then we label it 37 feet. Remember, the hypotenuse should always be the longest side, and 37 is bigger than 35 or 12. Sometimes you're given a word problem that does not provide you with a diagram, and you need to draw your diagram yourself. This problem says that John leaves school to go home. If he starts at school, the way he goes home is he travels 6 blocks north, which would be upward. And then he goes 8 blocks west, which would be to the left. They want to find the distance between his home, where he ended up, and school, which would be this distance here. Are we finding a hypotenuse or a leg? When we move north and then west, we form a right angle. So we are finding the hypotenuse, C. So again, we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. 8 squared plus 6 squared is equal to c squared. So we have 64 plus 36 is equal to c squared. 64 plus 36 is 100, which equals c squared. What does c equal? In order to find c, you must square root both sides, and so c is equal to 10 or 10 blocks. Here we have another example where you need to draw your own diagram. It says that Donna's TV screen is 20 inches long. If the diagonal measures 25 inches, how long is the width of Donna's TV? What we have is a rectangle, and they are telling us that we know that it is 20 inches long, and we know that it has a diagonal length of 25 inches. They are asking us to find this width here. Rectangles have a right angle at the corners, so are we finding a hypotenuse or a leg? In this case, we're finding a leg. I'm going to let this equal A. Our unknown that we're trying to find is our B, and 25 is C. So again, A squared plus B squared equals C squared is our formula for Pythagorean theorem. A squared is 20 squared. We do not know B, and our C is 25 squared. 20 to the second power is 400 plus B squared equals 625. In order to get the B squared by itself, would we add or subtract 400 from both sides of the equation? We should subtract 400 from both sides. This would give us B squared is equal to 225. Remember, in order to find B, we must take the square root of both sides. What does B equal? B equals 15 inches. Remember that we were finding a leg, and the hypotenuse should be longer than both of the legs, which it is. One of the most common kinds of applications you're asked to do is to find the diagonal of a box, and this requires multiple steps. Notice that we cannot find this value until we find this value. So we're actually going to do the Pythagorean theorem twice. First, we're going to find the length of y. And when we look at this triangle, we have a triangle where this is 7. We need to know this length. This is the same as this, so this is 3. And we are trying to find y. Is y a hypotenuse or a leg? Because y is across from the right angle, this is our hypotenuse. So we are going to square the two legs and add them together. So 3 squared plus 7 squared is going to equal our hypotenuse, y squared. 3 squared is 9. 7 squared is 49, which equals y squared. And 9 plus 49 is 58. Now we still need to find y. We do that by taking the square root of both sides. And so we get y is the square root of 58. And we're going to stop there for now. Now we also need to find this length, x. We now have another right triangle. Where we have our right angle here. This is x. This is y, which we found out was the square root of 58. And then we still need to know this height, the height of the box, which is 6 feet. Is x the hypotenuse or a leg? This is the hypotenuse, so we are still taking this leg squared plus this leg squared, which equals the hypotenuse squared. So 6 squared plus the square root of 58 squared, which is equal to the hypotenuse squared. 36 is 6 squared plus, what do we get when we square a square root? When we square the square root of 58, we get 58. Squaring a square root cancels these two out because they are opposite operations, so you just get the number inside. So this is equal to x squared. Now 36 plus 58 gives us 94 is equal to x squared. Now we can take the square root of both sides and we get that x is equal to the square root of 94. Now maybe the problem would ask you to get the answers to the nearest tenth. You would simply take the square root of 94. We know that that is about or approximately 9.6953 with several other digits. And if we round that to the nearest tenth, what would we get? We're trying to decide if this is going to stay a 6 or become a 7. So we look behind. The 9 tells me to round this up. So x is approximately 9.7 feet. If we were to do the same thing with the square root of 58, we get 7.6157 with several other digits afterwards. So if we round this to the nearest tenth, what would we get? This would give us 7.6 feet.